And ladies, don't have your focus being getting, in a relationship. At least, wait till you finish your steps. Wait till, you have a year sober.
Yes.
That would be my advice.
Unfortunately, these hoes be thirsty.
You know they sick of the ladies, it's the recovery ladies. Don't go dating or banging, cause every one of them's crazy. You will start off having fun, until you're both on a run. Pregnancy or NOD, rehabilitations are dumb. Some are sicker than others, usually garbage can mothers. You'll hide under your covers, you've been warned you will suffer. Don't forget what I said, if the hair color's red, she will put you in prison, or you'll wish you were dead. You know they sick of the ladies, it's the recovery ladies. Don't go dating or banging, cause every one of them's crazy. You will start off having fun, until you're both on the run. Pregnancy or NOD, rehabilitations are dumb. You know they're sicker than rabies, it's the recovery ladies. Don't go dating or banging, cause every one of them's crazy. You will start off having fun, until you're both on a run. Pregnancy or an OD, rehabilitations are dumb.
Like, da-na-na, don't be a whore. Da-na-na, don't be a whore. You know that song?
Yeah.
All right. Yeah! Them recovery ladies. Speaking of recovery ladies, thank you, Brittany, for being the first female on the Recovery Idiot.
I had no choice.
Yeah, that's true. So my name is Leroy, and I'm a recovered alcoholic addict. Welcome to the Recovery Idiot. If you like what you see, please go to therecoveryidiot.com and share a video. Share the link. Share it with your mother, your probation officer. It doesn't matter. Please just share it to help spread the word that there is a solution for people even like us. So Brittany, the only girl who's ever been in my room that I haven't seen naked.
Thank goodness for that.
I met you at Artesian. I believe it was your first round.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think it stuck with you, did it?
Definitely did not.
You came back after a wonderful adventure.
Oh, yeah.
When you came back, you were a little, more shot out than normal. You have a tendency of talking a lot and being kind of in between alternate universes. But I didn't actually realize how bad it was for you. How the hell did it get that bad?
Well, it started, first of all, let me say I was born in Missouri, but I grew up in Michigan. My childhood was, a normal childhood, I thought. My parents, both of my parents were together up until the day my mom died. My parents did not drink. My dad never drank. My mom rarely drank. They weren't drug users. I was an only child.
So spoiled.
Yeah, I was definitely spoiled. But I always just kind of felt out of place. I just never felt like I was part of the in crowd or anything. Okay, so my sophomore year of high school is when I started swimming on the swim team. I was doing pretty good. I did, but I wasn't very good in school. I started skipping a lot my junior year. That's when my parents say I went to the other, side. I started, there was one night that I stole my mom's Seagram 7 whiskey and was drinking it straight, no chaser. That night ended up terribly. I ended up laying in a ditch, puking my guts out. The next morning I had to go to swim practice, and I still remember going to do a flip turn, and I ended up having to jump out of the pool to go throw up. So
Nice.
That was my punishment.
Was there a medal for that?
No.
Well, I would have gave you an award. That sounds like an awesome swim meet.
Before that, I got the Workhorse of the Year award.
The hell's the workhorse?
I don't even know. I put in
Is
a
that
lot
like a
of work.
participation trophy for showing up and getting in
Yeah.
the water?
Yeah.
Well,
pretty
congratulations.
much. After high school and everything, I became friends with a different crowd, and, we went to a lot of raves in downtown Detroit. I ended up, starting to experiment with other things, ecstasy, cocaine, crack, and everything like that.
Just some recreational crack.
Right. And then it was about when I was 21 years old, I was introduced to somebody, and from there I, started taking painkillers. 1 turned into 3, 3 turned into 10. I think I still remember the most I ever took was 14 in one day.
14 what?
14 Vicodin.
2.5s, 5s, you remember?
7.5s and 10s.
Oh, yeah. I like the purple 10 milligram, the Watson brand.
I've never had a purple one.
They were 10 milligrams, I think, 350 milligrams of acetaminophen. Oh, remember the good old days when hydrocodone got you high? That
I do.
couldn't happen today.
I mean, when I was taking them back then, it was, I was just taking them, like I was going to work and taking them after work. I wasn't taking them to work.
Oh, you missed out.
I know. Well, that was until later on. And then, then that's when I realized that it became more of a problem. I was taking them to go to work. I needed them to wake up. I needed them to, eventually go to family get-togethers and everything else. It went from just taking them recreational. And then, I moved to St. Louis in 2009 from Michigan. And when I got there, I took about a year off and then I started taking them again. And then that's when it was 10 a day, 3, just to start my day, and then taking them throughout the day to keep going. One day at work, I had a girl come up and she, said, here, take this. And she gave me a quarter of an Adderall. And it was like I had found heaven on earth. And, it was crazy because as a kid, I was, diagnosed as ADD and I was prescribed Ritalin. And my mom would, force me to take my Ritalin every day. So I'd put it in my mouth and then I'd, spit it out and put it in the couch. So one day she goes ahead and she goes to clean, the couch up and she finds just pills everywhere. Probably years of pills.
What a waste.
Because I just didn't like the way it made me feel. So it was crazy that, this little piece of a pill just made me feel, like I was the best version of me. The cocktail went from being just Vicodin, Percocet in the morning to adding, a couple Addies to me eventually getting a script of Adderall. And then it was just nonstop because I could trade, the Adderall for the Vicodin. So I just constantly had them coming in. And then eventually, I was able to, I got all my stuff off the street through people, especially being able to trade and whatnot. And then it was about 2013 or 2014. I got off work one day after not taking pills for a couple weeks. I, went to go to my guy's house and, I go to turn left on his street and then I get pulled over. I wasn't aware that my license was suspended. So
Such a drug addict thing. Just, conveniently forgot my license was suspended.
And me not knowing any better, they ended up searching my car and then they came over and handcuffed me. I said, what am I being handcuffed for? And they said, for the button in, the back of your, in your car. And I said, well, I don't know what a button is. They said, yeah, you do. So it took me until getting out of jail the next day to know that apparently it was a capsule of heroin, which was news to me because I've never tried heroin a day in my life.
It's news to me that someone called it a button, because in all my years of drug use, I've never heard it called a button.
I know, right? I still haven't heard anyone else call it that, but that's what the cops said. And I didn't worry about it because of the fact that I knew I didn't have heroin on me because I don't do heroin. And I said, well, I'm supposed to be moving to Florida, in a month. They said, well, if you have nothing to worry about, then, you have nothing to worry about. So I ended up moving to Florida. I moved to Fort Myers with an ex of mine, and we got out there, and I was off the pills. I quit taking the pills, overnight. That lasted for about a year. And then eventually I found a connection, started taking them, and I was right back to where I was. So I was taking, a lot of Adderall, a lot of painkillers, and, I would leave work on a bank run and stop at my guy's house to get my pills for the day. I thought I had my life together a lot at that point because I had a salary, I had the relationship, I had everything going for me, but in reality, my addiction was the worst it was. I had a really bad night. We went out to Illinois for one night, me, my boss, and the owner of the company, and I don't know what happened that night, but I just know it wasn't good. I almost got arrested.
Was it drugs, alcohol? What was it?
I think I was slipped something that night. I think I didn't have the alcohol tolerance that I once had. And I drank, and it was a really good night, and then one too many. That's what happened. I remember taking my last shot. I remember nothing. There was about a 2-hour period where I have absolutely no recollection, and I got woken up by the police in the hallway of a hotel with my pants off.
Did the cops take your pants off, or they were off before?
They were off already.
Well, actually, you don't know because you blocked out.
And then the cops were trying to wake me up, and I was speaking absolute, complete gibberish. That was a bad night. And I think that was the end of my relationship. We were together for a while after that, but that was the end because I don't know what happened that night.
There was a time I woke up in jail in Lenexa, Kansas. I was living in Missouri, living in Kansas City, and I woke up in this jail cell, and a couple of my teeth are missing, and I feel really beat up. And I'm like, man, what's going on? There's a female CO. And she's like, oh, you're polite now. I was like, what the hell does that mean? Where am I? I have no clue what happened before. I know I woke up that morning. I went to the methadone clinic. Then I remember waking up in jail, and I think it was 2 or 3 days later. At the methadone clinic, you could reach over and steal pre-made methadone that people were coming to pick up. I did it all the time. Well, apparently I stole 2 or 3 and drank them all and went to Walmart to shoplift and was out of my mind because I took way too much methadone. And I get into the parking lot, and these 2 cops are coming to arrest me or see what's going on. And I start fighting like it's the Matrix. I get in a martial arts stance, and I'm throwing punches, and I'm doing really good for 15 seconds until I'm tackled and get beat with batons. The only reason I even know it happened is because I've seen the security footage in court when I had to go to fight the charge. And I would love to be able to get that video sometime to show people.
Well, what was really bad about that night was that, I left this part out, is where I woke up and that my dad, like I was in Illinois and my dad, who lives, over an hour away, Missouri, and I'm living in Florida at this time, but I wake up to my dad in the hotel room because the cops had called my boyfriend, and then my boyfriend at the time, they called him, and then he called my dad at 2 o'clock in the morning, drove from Missouri to Illinois, and I woke up with him in my hotel room. And then I had to get back on a flight at 6 o'clock in the morning. Still drunk. That night ended up having a lot of consequences, and, it was actually pretty traumatic. It's definitely was a turning point looking back, but I obviously had a problem. And the fact that I, didn't care about other people's feelings or anything, looking back, definitely realized that was a problem. So I was working in Illinois. My boyfriend and I, at the time, we were staying at my parents' house in Missouri. I was driving over an hour to work every day. Again, found connections there, had my cocktail every day. And then I ended up we ended up shutting that store down. It didn't work out. It crushed me. I still remember that New Year's. Absolutely cried myself to sleep, and I was heartbroken. Ended up back in Florida. I still never heard anything about being pulled over. I checked on CaseNet, Missouri CaseNet, a couple times. Didn't have anything, showing. Then I went on a trip with a friend of mine. She was in town, and I had told myself, the last day of that trip, I was going to quit taking pills. Then I, wanted to go get that last high.
Just one more time, then I'll be good.
I just wanted to go get 4 more pills, and then I was going to quit. I ended up getting pulled over for speeding, and they said, well, you have a felony warrant outside Missouri. And I said, what? They said, you have a felony warrant for possession of heroin. This was about 3 years later also. This wasn't like, I was on the run apparently for 3 years and didn't know it.
A fugitive from justice for a button.
Yeah. I ended up getting arrested. I spent 28 days in Lee County Jail, and it was on the 28th day at 2 o'clock in the morning they came and got me, and there was 2 U.S. Marshals there waiting for me from St. Louis County Jail. And, I'd heard all the horror stories about, getting on the bus and having to stop at every jail on the way.
I have never been a fugitive of justice, so you got one on me. But I seen them doing transport, so they came and shackled you?
Yeah, they did. I was handcuffed. It was one of those, old Nautica, windbreakers. And there were holes in the pocket, so I was handcuffed up under there. And
were you back in your street clothes when they transported you, or you had to wear jail clothes?
Yeah, I had a work shirt on and some leggings.
Because there's nothing worse than seeing somebody being transported in their disgusting orange jumpsuit.
And then I still had my white, my whites or whatever. I had those on. I remember it being really cold because I eventually made it, so they ended up picking me up. We flew in the last seat on the flight or
which
whatever.
is the normal commercial flight. It wasn't Con Air.
It was just a normal commercial flight.
So there's
in
families.
Between 2 marshals, Rick and Rick.
There's families leaving Disney World, about to go back to St. Louis, and they look back, and Hannibal Lecter is chained up in the back between 2 marshals.
Well, we ended up seeing Flow Rider in the airport, so maybe they were more focused on him than they were.
Was he on the plane?
No, he was in the airport waiting to get on a plane.
And did you get an autograph?
No, sure didn't. I thought maybe one of the marshals were going to get it because he was over there finding out who he was.
I can't think of a single Flow Rider song.
Apple bottom jeans, boots.
No, that's not him.
Yeah, it is.
No.
Yeah, but I was really excited because I got pancakes that day. I got Diet Coke and pancakes that morning when we got to the hospital. Not the hospital, to the airport. Important. When we got to the airport, I got pancakes and Diet Coke, so that made me happy.
Did you have to eat with your hand shackled?
No, they would hand... and then if I had to use the restroom, because they were both men, they would take me to, the family restroom, and I'd take my handcuffs off,
Do you ever think about running?
No. I just wanted to get back to St. Louis at that point. So then... so we get back to St. Louis at about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and, they ended up booking me there, and I just remember being like, this is so much worse than where I just was. Because you're in St. Louis, so it's a lot, it was the most absolutely crazy, 18 hours of my life.
There was riots there.
Yeah. Well, there was one chick that she came out on 3 grams of meth. She was trying to, fight all the, officers and everything. Then this other girl, I look over and it's this one girl and she's got this other girl, her head slammed against the window. And I'm like, where am I at? This is terrible. This is nothing like where I just was. This is absolutely horrible. I'm in here with, people that killed other people, like probably like I need to get out of here. And I called my dad and I said, Dad, I need you to get me out now. And he said, Brittany, you have to go to court in the morning. And then if your bond gets reduced, we can get you out. But let me tell you, it was terrible. Then they lost me in the jail when it came to my court date. So I was missing court because they lost me because they had sent me upstairs when they weren't supposed to. You know, the entire time I was in jail and everything. And I'm just praying that, you know, dear God, like if you get me out of this jail, I promise I'm going to do things right. Like I thought I was going to get out and build furniture and like do all this like crafty stuff like with my life. And I was definitely not going to do drugs. So my dad picks me up and I walk into my parents' house. My parents never took painkillers or anything. As soon as I walked in that house, looked in the medicine cabinet, found a bottle of tramadol. Why that was there, I don't know. But I took that thing and I ate it for the next 5 days. So literally was out of jail for 30 minutes before I had a mouthful of pills. I ended up getting a lawyer. Long story short, when it came to my arrest, I ended up getting 2 years non-reporting probation. But I chose to go to treatment before going to court. Of course, I decided to take everything to the next level because I was mad. I was angry. Like, why am I in trouble for something I've never done? Like, obviously, I mean, I was doing wrong. I got away with a lot. But the one time I wasn't on my way getting something, like, why am I in this situation? So I decided, hey, you know, I had always told myself I'm never going to try heroin. I'm never going to try meth. And then I went out one day with a friend and, you know, they said, here, try this. I said, what is that? And they said, oh, it's meth. And I said, okay. So I snorted a little bit. And then I had to go to work the next day. And I was like, well, I don't have any pills or anything to like help bring me down from this or bring me back up. This is a miserable feeling. So what did I do? I did it again. Started smoking it once a week, twice a week, you know, and then it became staying up for 3 days, sleeping for a day, and then continuing to get high. By the time that I ended up going to treatment, I was fully blown addicted to meth. You know, I still remember the way my parents found out is that I thought this guy was going to kill me. I remember being at his apartment, called my friend and I was FaceTiming her because I thought he was going to kill me. So I ended up going to my parents' house the next day because she had sent all the screenshots from that FaceTime conversation. She sent the screenshots to my parents. You know, he would never sleep. And I mean, I would just take off running. I'd like leave my shoes behind me. Like I'd always go running. I've jumped out windows running from him and stuff. He never actually put his hands on me, but it was scary up until then, you know. I think one time he pulled out a crossbow and I took off running without my shoes. I can still remember the night that like I started really going into my psychosis. I remember I looked in the mirror and I saw a cockroach like crawl down my face and it wasn't really there, but I said, okay, this is bad. I didn't know what psychosis was or anything at that time. I just know I wasn't sleeping and I had lost 60 pounds in a matter of 30 days. So I ended up getting sent to Recovery by the Sea in Stuart, Florida. So I did my 30 days at rehab. You know, I wanted to be like the starlight client. I was good. And so then 30 days and I ended up going back home and I went right back out the next day. That relapse, I went right back out. Things got a little crazier. My psychosis definitely got a lot more weird. And I remember I was staying down in the city and I didn't feel safe where I was and I just had enough. I couldn't live like that. And, you know, I ended up coming to treatment again at Recovery by the Sea. And that time I decided to stay. So I went to Artesian. I never planned on staying sober though. I thought like I was able to play it off, but I think at the end of the day I knew I wasn't going to.
So you got to Artesian.
Because it was the last week in Recovery by the Sea when I was an inpatient and COVID hit. So by the time I got to Artesian, the world was shut down. Like I was mad and I was angry because I had, you know, went up to the Outback and I got a job, started, and then the next day they shut down. So I was mad. So I just left my friends, I left my playground, I left everything so I can go back to work and start a normal life. And I can't because of COVID. You can't go anywhere. Everything's shut down. There's no work. So it was hard. I got to Artesian. They said, oh, you know, you need to have a home group, which it's hard to have a home group. There's all these online meetings. Fellowships eventually started opening and I started going there and like went to the 10:30 meeting. They told me to get a sponsor. So I went up to a woman and I said, hey, you know, will you be my sponsor? I met her one time and then I never met her after that.
Wow, what a shock that this didn't work. It was a different time. We had meetings at the house every day. What the hell was going on at Artesian when no one could leave?
Everyone was started hooking up and we were all hanging out in the chicken coop. It's so different being there now than it was back then. I mean, I'm pretty sure that there's at least like 4
babies.
Artesian babies. They're beautiful, but there's about 4 of them, I think. Everyone started getting in relationships, and I was not one of those people, though. But I did meet some good people. The people I met in Artesian back then, I'm still friends with a few of them, including your girlfriend.
I don't call her that. I call her my future ex-wife.
Okay, so your future.
It makes more sense.
Your future ex-wife.
So was this around the time at Artesian where certain girls started doing OnlyFans?
Yeah.
And do you want to...
Again, I was not one of them.
Do you want to mention their names?
I do not.
So you didn't work your steps, you didn't get a sponsor,
No.
and then you decided to go home for a visit. What happened?
I didn't do any of those things because I was not a program person. Like, I was not a person that was going to get sober through a program or from a book. And then it was like about 7 months, I made a trip to go home, and I, completely 100% had reservations, and I relapsed. Said to myself, oh, I'm going to just do it for one day. And then after that one day, I'm going to, be able to pass a drug test when I get back. So I, instead got high every day. And then the last day and a half, I didn't, I got a detox drink, got a room at this, Suburban Inn. And
Oh, that should be a sponsor, because the Suburban, legendary for ruining lives. And my friend's body was found in the Suburban.
Right.
And he wasn't the first one.
I went there and, tried to sleep off, because I hadn't slept my entire trip. Ended up drinking that detox drink. They called me at 8 o'clock to come take that drug test. I looked at that drug test and I said, oh, damn. So I walked out. I said, well, I messed up. They said, okay, well, you have to leave until you can pass the test. I passed the test, the next day. But I had to start everything all over. I had to move houses. I lost the best roommate that I had, but eventually she left the, master room just to come be with me because we love each other so much.
So stupid. Such dorks.
And then 3 months later, I decided that I was going back home.
I would send you Facebook Messenger messages, and I'd say, hey, you doing good? And you say, yeah, everything's great, sober.
Yeah, I was high
And
within
then-
24 hours of getting home.
Yes, it's obvious, because that's what happens to people when they leave Artesian, where they haven't worked their steps, which is funny, because I carry in
I went right back to where right back out.
I carry in my big book a list of all the people that have been successful in Artesian and not working their steps. Do you see the names?
I do.
It's Roy. Roy is the only one on the list, and he's successful just by staying alive. This is what happens when you leave Artesian without working the steps. So you went back to get high immediately, and how awesome did it get?
It was absolutely, the worst time of my life. I mean, so bad. I just never knew it could get that bad. I went right back into my psychosis, started thinking crazy things.
This was all meth.
And this was like a more everyday use. I was using it more like every day.
This was no longer painkillers and Adderall. This was
no.
street meth.
Yeah, no, once the meth happened, I mean, that's all it was. That's all I did.
And all you did was smoke it?
I did shoot it for a little while.
Like on your
The first
own, or
time
you
out.
had someone just poke you?
I've never done it myself.
Pussy.
Yeah, I know.
I'm just kidding.
So I only
shouldn't
did
say
it.
that.
I only did it for a little while, and then I was able to stop, but I was a big time smoker. I loved it, and I even with my psychosis and everything, like I still think that I had my life enough together, even though I ended up infections on my face and everything. Like that's what took me out of work the first time, because I had holes here and here, literally like holes this big on the side of my face. That took me out of work the first time, and then eventually it got to the point where my psychosis like had me just out of my mind, and I still remember like I actually ran out. Like the last time that I worked at Outback before finally coming here is that I ran out in the middle of the shift. Like I thought that they were making fun of my mental health or something, and so I took off running.
So you were actually like serving people while high on meth?
Oh, absolutely.
Being completely insane.
I mean, I never like got high at work.
Did you get good tips while you were serving people in
I get
meth
better-
psychosis?
I get better tips now. I'd be at the table like every 2 seconds, like, is everything okay? Can I get you anything? Do you need a refill? How's that steak? Like, can I get you anything else? Annoying. Like, I was there constantly. You know what I mean? Okay, so I'm not working at this point. Like, I have no income coming in. I ended up getting some, like, money from, like, the stimulus checks. Like, that's how I, like, had some money to survive for a while, because I got those all later. Well, so I had this truck, and, so I don't have no income. Get myself in these really bad, positions, because then when I would run out of gas, I'd start walking places, like, through the city. And, I mean, I'm not talking for, like, a day. Like, there was one night I literally, like, lost my car. Like, those were some really wild nights.
There's some really bad neighborhoods around there too.
So then, like, one day, like, I ended up, like, running out of gas, so I ended up walking, and eventually somebody gave me some random stranger, gave me a ride to my friend's house in the city, and then I went over there, and, I'm in full-blown psychosis at this point, like, and I'm upstairs, and I'm not really comfortable there, and they had my keys, and I'm knocking on their door. Anyways, I, like, ended up flipping out, and I wanted my keys. I'm knocking on the door, and I'm mad because they are not, opening the door to give me my keys, and I just want to know where my keys are so I can go. Me and my dog can go. No one picks up, so I said, okay, well, I'm going to steal your doorknob. You're taking away my protection by taking my car. I'm going to take away your doorknob, because I had a screwdriver in my purse, because that's what you do as a tweaker. So I stole their doorknob, and I walked 2 miles with my dog to this other guy's house, another friend there, and that girl came out and attacked me. So, like, she's trying to, like, punch me, and I'm trying to swing my purse at her because I have a doorknob in my purse, so I'm going to hit her in the head with this doorknob. Needless to say, I missed. My dog's like trying to attack her, but my dog can't like wrap his mouth around her leg. I ended up walking. I walked overnight. I walked all around that city that night. And my car is still floating around somewhere in St. Louis, Missouri. I never got it back. So I had no car.
And there's probably someone that made that doorknob their higher power.
Previous to that was Father's Day. And, I left the same house and, I got home that day and my dad said, oh, you're here to ruin my Father's Day, I see. And so I snapped out and I thought they called, you having a breaking point for a reason because that dad decided to grab a root beer bottle, throw it at his head. That Father's Day was something really special. And he, instead of me giving him a gift, he gave me the gift of a protection order. Sorry, Dad. But this year was better. What was really hard about that, though, is that my mom, she was sick. So that day that protection order, happened, it was really hard because I couldn't see my mom. I'd show up at my dad's house and he'd call the cops on me every time. And even when he did let me in, he'd still just end up calling the cops on me. And I was angry because why are you keeping me away from my mom? Everyone says, like, when it comes to your mom, like, love her while she's here. Spend as much time as you can with your mom, before they're gone. And I didn't do that.
Well, that's what sober people say. You don't think about those things when you're on drugs.
I knew she was sick, and then just with I'm not allowed at my parents' house. I'm getting, my dad's calling the cops on me. I had gotten this dog in the meantime, and that dog, I think at the end of the day, did end up saving my life. I got him, and my dad would watch him for a couple days, and then, we'd be on the road. So that dog went everywhere with me and everything. It got really bad. She was in the hospital. Me and my dad, we got into a really big fight. I ended up breaking down on the side of the road, and I was going to hurt him or I was going to hurt myself. So I ended up checking myself into the psych ward. I spent 3 days there, and then I came home the same day as my mom came home on hospice. She passed away 4 days later, and that was really hard. My dad said, okay, you can stay here again, like everything's fine. And I was like, okay, great. And then my dad told me I needed to leave. And the only place I was accepted at this point was in a tent. Somebody's backyard. Because I had pushed everybody that did care about me and look out for me. I pushed them all away.
Was it a Coleman?
I don't even know. But I do know that the tent that I was in, I also had a girl like driving up and down the road to where I thought she was going to, run me over because I was in this tent.
Were you in the backyard or the front yard?
Front yard. I mean, it wasn't like a subdivision. It's like there's like these trailer parks.
So a tent and a trailer park.
Yes. That was not good at all. And, I couldn't be in that tent anymore. And I still remember going into somebody's house, next door to the tent. And I walked in there. He said, you got to go. Like, you can't hang out here anymore. And I said, okay, hand me a phone. And I called rehab. And he said, well, we can't take you at Recovery by the Sea because we don't take your insurance anymore. So I said, all right. So I ended up, going and they said, you can go to Tennessee. They said, Mississippi, or you can go to Vegas. Well, I thought Vegas was the place for me. Like, I'm going to go there. There's plenty of characters there. Like,
gambling.
That's going to be great. Yeah, and I had a gambling addiction at the time, too.
You were living in a tent. How'd you have money to have a gambling addiction?
Addiction for you. So I went to Vegas. I ended up getting sick, and was at the detox for a couple days, and then they sent me over to Resolutions. It's less than a mile down from Fremont Street. And after 2 weeks, I'm at the microwave, and I, see this guy, and I said, hey, what's your name? He tells me his name. We ended up, started hanging out. We walked down to Circa the next day. We'd go gamble. And I thought, wow, it's my first, rehab romance. This is great. A couple days before New Year's, and he had to go back, home, and I decided that would be the good time to ask him a question, like, oh, by the way, are you married? He said, no. He's like, well, yeah. He's like, but I'm separated. And I was like, okay, So then, a few days later, he went back home, and then they came up to me when I'm in my room because it was like a hotel setup. So I'm in my room, and they knock on the door, and they said, Brittany, there's a former resident, and he's not going to leave until he sees you. So I'm, living, the pretty woman, dream. He came back for me. He went all the way back to came back to Vegas, and we didn't talk because we didn't exchange numbers, obviously, because he has a wife. It's like the movies.
This is true love. This is your soulmate.
I mean, absolutely. Well, so I go out there and I realized that he had definitely relapsed at that point. I stayed sober, but I hung out with him and hung out with him in a hotel, drank a lot of vodka. Even that wasn't enough for me to be like, this might not be a good idea. So then, they pulled me out one day and they said, hey, you gotta go. Your insurance isn't gonna cover anymore. So I ended up back at Artesian again, and I had that guy in Vegas. He came out, twice just to see me.
Oh,
I know, right? But he was wasted the entire time.
I have this other list in my book, in my big book. It's all the successful relationships that started in rehab. Look, there's not one. So how did your relationship with this guy work out when he came to visit you twice?
As soon as he put alcohol into his system, he wanted to unalive himself, That's where he was. And it was really hard to see. I mean, because here I am, I'm trying to start a new life and everything, and I'm listening to somebody who wants to end their life. And then, and then his wife texts me.
Hello, I'm the wife. What
saying,
did she say?
Saying, I know who you are, and, we're separated, that they were actually separated and everything. But point blank, as I knew at the end of the day, even at that moment, like, okay, well, this can work out. This is going to work out eventually. He's going to get his divorce, and I'll just back off until he does. Needless to say, that didn't happen. Here I am in my first, 30 days of sobriety, 60 days of sobriety, and I'm like,
Could start a new life with this guy.
I got
Everything's
to
gonna be
Artesian,
okay.
and Brian said, hey, I said, hey, Brian, did I need a car? So he says, okay, well, I've got somebody who can also be your sponsor. She'll get you a car, and she can be your sponsor. So I said, all right, thinking, I can blow it off for a while. She was there the next day. So that's how I met Sarah. She's an amazing sponsor. So there, within the first 24 hours, I did something different as I got a sponsor. But still, I still remember going to her place and, thinking, okay, like, when he comes back for me, and I'm going to go back to Vegas to live happily ever after, I'm going to block the people at Artesian, my sponsor. Like, I'm just going to, ghost everyone overnight. And I still remember, like, the Vegas guy came to visit me, and I was trying to get out of going to see my sponsor, and she's like, you need to be here. Like, you have a commitment. And I went there, and then I was like, oh, I don't have my book. And she said, okay, we're not going to read today. But she still made me get up and drive over there because she knew that I was trying to get out of it. And that I have commitments now, and I have to stick to them. I didn't plan on it, though. Like, I planned on, 90 days being here, and I was going to go back, live happily ever after. Needless to say, that didn't happen. I ended up meeting some people at, Artesian, found another person, little rehab romance. So I met somebody at Artesian because the, like, Vegas guy says, did you meet somebody? I said, well, I'm not, like, seeing somebody, but, like, I'm kind of talking to somebody. I'm hanging out with people. And he ended up, going back to treatment. I haven't heard from him since. And then all of a sudden, I was here longer than 90 days. And I had gotten a home group. I had started doing service commitments. I had my sponsor that I met with every week. I was doing something I didn't plan on doing. Because I don't think I even knew that I actually was going to do it this time. I kind of, in my head thought, like, I'm going to just be here to make people happy. Because that's what I had done, before was I was here to make other people happy. So I ended up started doing my thing. And
this time it worked?
It worked.
So
now I have 19 months sober.
Oh, so what you're saying is if you get a sponsor and work the steps, it actually works?
It does.
Is that what you're trying to say?
And then what's crazy to me, though, is like, I didn't want to ever, I started having to do things that made me uncomfortable. And I started going through this like phase of, facing a lot of fear.
It's like there's a chapter in a book about
and
that.
I wanted to run. I wanted to run from it all. I still remember it was a Tuesday. At this point, I was living with you. I remember being outside, and I did not want to go to the meeting that night. I did not want to go to Artesian on a Tuesday to do a meeting with you. Like, I did not want to go, but I had told you that I would start doing these things. So I got up and I went. Whatever we spoke about that night, I remember at the end, I said, I know I need to work step 12 more because I had, didn't have a sponsee. I never planned on having a sponsee. I wasn't going to go that far with it. And then somebody came up to me that day and said, hey, are you looking for sponsees? And so here I am.
Wow.
Doing something I never thought I was going to do. So I called my sponsor that night to say, hey, guess what? I had somebody ask me, to sponsor them. And, and I said yes. And she goes, okay, well, I also have something, a speaking event at Fellowship. Need you and your roommate to go do it. And I did not want to do that. No, I did not. And I did it. So I'm going through a phase of not running from my fear.
Oh, like doing this tonight?
Yeah, absolutely. Did not want to do this.
Well, this is a crazy secret, but you know what? Most people don't want to do any of this stuff. I know I didn't. I was forced into it. I don't want to work my stupid staffs with a stupid sponsor and spend time with them reading a stupid book. That sucks. But guess what? It works.
Well, and becoming a sponsor, like actually me reading that book to somebody else, it started hitting more because I was reading these chapters and I could remember back to exactly where I was at when I was reading that. I can tell like when the Vegas guy was happening. I could tell when changes at Artesian were happening because I could tell like where I was highlighting and not highlighting, And it meant more rereading it and reading it to somebody else. I didn't realize how rewarding being a sponsor can be.
It's almost like they tell you that.
I know.
It's almost like there's a thing in the book about nothing will so ensure immunity from drinking like work with another alcoholic, drug addict,
Exactly.
Whatever you want to call it. Well, yeah, it's funny because I think somebody told you this many times over, that you should probably do this and not go home, but you did, and you should. Sure, you were told from day one at Artesian to get a sponsor, work the staff, so you didn't do it, but we're drug addicts. We got to learn things the hard way.
Yeah, because back then I could use COVID as an excuse for everything.
No, a drug addict can use anything as an excuse for anything.
Yeah.
But this time you did it.
So I did it, and life is I'm living a life beyond my wildest dreams. Still work at Outback, and
You
things are
have-
going very good there.
A wonderful car with no air conditioning.
I have a car with no air conditioner,
Just
but
like me.
But I do have a car. I'm not living in a tent. Thanks.
It's
Appreciate
only
that.
8 o'clock. It's possible.
Holy shit, you looked horrible. So glad you decided to quit. Now let's look at your pictures on the recovery idiot. Holy shit, you looked horrible. So glad you decided to quit. Now let's look at your pictures on the recovery idiot.
Welcome to a new segment on the Recovery Idiot called Holy Shit, You Looked Horrible. I'm going to show some evidence to the people. Evidence that was presented to me by the defendant. Evidence of just how bad things were, because I had no idea what was going on this day.
Oh, I'm going to guess that I was probably up for like 4 days there.
Where was this at?
I could tell that I was at my friend's house in Missouri, and he was my safe place to go to. He's been my friend for over 10 years, and he was where I could go after a 4-day run, maybe even longer, and I could go to his house and be safe, and he would cook me food.
So you stay up for 5 days, then bring the shadow people to have breakfast.
Yeah, pretty much. That was actually at the end of my second round.
What about this amazing contrast in black eyes and normal eyes? And I gotta say, the blouse is amazing.
That was at the very beginning of my use. Basically, like I was using a needle, and I ended up letting somebody make it for me, and they gave me probably 10 times more than I usually did, and they said it had to come out somewhere, and it came out of my face. That was the worst headache of my life.
Never heard anything like that before. So
No.
you weren't punched. This is a
I was not
reaction
punched in the
to
face. That was-
shooting up too much.
Yes.
See, this is
Yeah,
why.
yeah, that was probably the most messed up I've ever gotten.
This is why, kids. It's so much safer to do real heroin. Don't mess with those chemicals made in a lab.
That was so bad. And I had to go to work. That was the week I was supposed to go to work. And it started coming out of my forehead, and I said, I can't come into work like this. And he said, Brittany, you have to get your shift covered. And I said, there's no way I can come, and I ended up sending that picture.
So you didn't wait on tables looking like this?
No.
Thank God.
Because the pus was coming out of my head.
Oh my God. I don't.
Well, it's
Oh
the
my
truth of
God.
it.
But-
Don't do drugs, kids.
How about this? Same blouse.
I ended up in the hospital because I went in because my headache was so bad. I mean, it was worse than a migraine. So I ended up going to the hospital, and then, yeah, I ended up really bad. I didn't have to stay too long, but I did end up there, and they gave me some
Morphine.
antibiotics. No, I didn't take no painkillers.
They didn't give you.
I remember they were worried about me, and it was because of my heart rate. But I wasn't at the point where I was going to admit that I was using meth. I mean, obviously, I mean, look at it.
I don't know. It doesn't look like meth face to me. That looks more like domestic V face.
Wasn't punched in the face.
That sure looks like it. Looks like someone didn't cook dinner for their husband and whack.
That was bad. That was my second run, like, between the 2 times I went to not to Artesian, but to RBS. But there I was hopeless. There I was lost. I didn't know how to get out of what I was doing at that point, and I can still remember that. I was in someone's bathroom that day. Absolutely miserable. I had stopped thinking that, I had some crazy disease, and, I had to pick things out of my face, or I had shards of glass coming out of my face, I had stopped picking there. So there I just had the scars. But I was hopeless there.
I can see that.
But then I look back at other pictures, and I have like the Snapchat filters on and everything, and I was like, oh yeah, I was looking good then, but that was the reality of it.
But this, compared to the other ones,
Yeah.
does not look that bad.
Looks kind of similar.
Yes, that there's no life in the eyes, and the facial expression is like, I give up.
And I think that's where I was at in that picture, is I had given up.
But the thing is, I couldn't give up because I needed to continue to get up to make money so I could get high, so I could continue to work so I could wake up and get money to get
Yeah.
high. But yeah, I think this is my pretty hopeless. If you compare the two of them, you kind of have that same expression that just, hey man, life sucks.
I did.
Feeling was mutual. So this is you actually working.
I thought I could go into work looking like that and nobody would know what I was doing.
If this woman was my waitress, I would definitely be like, this bitch is alright,
Well, I mean, with what happened at work is everyone saw a huge decline in me, is that we had a couple people that I worked with ended up passing away. After that happened, they kind of started taking a look, more at people, and I went, I dropped 60 pounds in about 2 months. So
That's better than Ozempic.
Yeah, I know. That's what I'm saying. It was great weight loss drug.
So this is how you serve blooming onions.
Yeah, so I'd go in and, like I said, I mean, I was a picker, so I had holes all over my face, and
Oh, God.
it was bad.
So disturbing. So, and finally, our last exhibit for the court.
Okay, so so that's the day that my parents found out. That was the situation leading to my parents finding out that I was using meth, and, to their knowledge, I wasn't doing anything wrong. At that point, I was on a FaceTime call with a friend of mine. She was obviously concerned, but I thought I was going to die that day. There was a guy with a gun. Used to have to jump out of windows from this guy because he was just crazy. I mean, he would be going and then he would just stop and like tip over. And whenever he would tip over, I would escape. It's like battery would just die and he'd tip over wherever he was. But I mean, and so this night he had a gun. It's not I hadn't been around that, at that point, and I was terrified that he was going to kill me. So I ended up FaceTiming a friend and, was hiding my phone while, she apparently took screenshots and then sent them to my parents. But I can still remember that was about the time that I went into my psychosis. Because I remember standing in the bathroom and I saw a cockroach go down my face. And there was definitely no cockroach on my face, but that's what I saw.
I'm so glad I never got that into meth. So, Brittany, I don't have a vagina. So I don't know if you can tell, but I'm not a woman. And every time I sponsor a woman, they end up going to the nut house. Do you have some better advice for women than what I could possibly offer?
So you want to get a sponsor, you want to get a home group, you want to have service commitments. If someone asks you to speak, that's something you should definitely do. And then once you do work your steps, definitely make sure you sponsor another woman. And ladies, don't have your focus being getting, in a relationship. You see the cute guy across the room like I did, and then next thing...
Oh, cute guy. You must be talking about somebody I don't know, because I didn't see you talking to any cute guys. That meth has really warped your vision if you think any of those guys were cute. But good point. That guy you meet in rehab is going to be a mistake.
Definitely.
The relationship you start in the halfway house is probably going to end in an arrest or a trip to the psych ward.
At least, wait till you finish your steps. Wait till, you have a year sober.
Yes.
That would be my advice.
My biggest advice is always don't make any decisions, period, until you work your steps. Unfortunately, these hoes be thirsty. Everyone ends up hooking up with everyone. And you know what? Those people don't stay sober.
The life I'm living now is a life beyond my wildest dreams, and I can't wait to see where my journey leads me.
And don't have sex on the couch at Artesian.
Heard
She
that.
didn't, but someone did.
It wasn't me.